when you buy teriyaki sauce, make sure you turn it around and check. If the second ingredient is sugar, basically you're eating pure sugar. Sauces should not be an exception to the sugar rule. Besides sugar, look for emulsifiers like xanthan gum.
This might just be my new favorite way to eat tofu.
Let me try that.
First thing I do is press my tofu. You can skip this step, but if you press your tofu, it's going to get nice and crispy in the end.
I've eaten tofu since I was a kid, so I know a lot of tofu hacks. I usually just open up the box and let it dry in the refrigerator. Or if I know I'll need a drier tofu, I'll keep some in the freezer, take it out, let it defrost in the refrigerator overnight, and then pour that water out, and that gets a chewier texture.
Next, I slice the tofu into 2 steaks, then I slice all the way along at 2 to 3 millimeter intervals, using chopsticks to prevent the knife going all the way through. For the sauce, I combine teriyaki with soy sauce, maple syrup, lime zest, lime juice, and ginger. I add most of it to the tofu, saving some for topping, and I push the sauce into the grooves to get as much flavor into the tofu as possible. The last thing to do is prepare the toppings, then plate up. Enjoy.
Now, I don't often press my tofu. In fact, I have to admit, it's not something that I do commonly at all. I've maybe tried to do it once. If I want that kind of dry tofu, I just go buy bean curd. So this is actually a lot of effort for me because I usually try to minimize my time in the kitchen. But I am willing to try new things and new ideas. So he says, the first thing I have to do is to press the tofu. And that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so here's my plate. And I rinsed my tofu after I took it out of the box. And I'm going to put it on this plate. And now I'm going to put another plate on top of that tofu. But the plate is too light, so I'm going to need a weight. Actually, I have a better idea. I'm going to put a mortar bowl, since those are pretty heavy. It's basically a giant stone. And then on top of that, I'm going to put my pot. This is probably going to take a while. So I'm just going to go do my stuff while this is trying to get all the water out. If you've never had tofu, you're probably wondering what it is. Tofu is made out of soybeans. It is considered a minimally processed food. So dried soybeans are soaked and ground into milk. A coagulant is added to make the protein and fats curdle and form a solid, which is then poured into a mold and pressed to remove the water. Now, what I'm doing is simply pressing more of the water out. There are different forms of tofu, from silken to firm, and I have here a firm tofu. The more firm the tofu is, the more protein it has. Okay, so it's been almost 30 minutes. I think enough liquid has come out. It's kind of cool, huh? Look at that. Look at the liquid on the bottom. Millions of people eat soy daily because it is so unique. It provides a good balance of all the 9 essential amino acids. Soy protein has been shown to lower inflammation, lower low-density lipoprotein levels, and the FDA has approved claims of soy as being a heart-healthy food to reduce heart disease. In fact, over the long term, people who ate the most soy had the lowest risk of heart disease, which is great for me since I've been eating soy since I was a little tiny kid. Soy is rich in isoflavones, which has been shown to improve bone mineral density to reduce the risk of osteoporosis in postmenopausal women. And by the way, soy is also a great source of calcium. Now, I'm really glad that my parents gave me soy products since I was a tiny kid, because children who eat soy appear to have a lower risk of breast cancer as adults. And if you have a prostate, soy appears to lower the risk of prostate cancer too. Now, if you're worried about your blood sugars, well, when you eat beans, even soybeans, they can help improve blood sugar control. It's even better if you eat whole soybeans, which has more fiber, as the fiber helps to promote a healthy digestion and regular bowel movements. Now, some people have heard that you're not supposed to eat soy products if you have thyroid problems. Now, if you have an insufficient intake of iodine, that will definitely lead to more thyroid problems. And if you're taking thyroid medications, then those medications need to be taken on an empty stomach, because just about every food, including soy, will interfere with its absorption. So if your diet is concentrated on getting enough iodinated rich foods, then there is no evidence to suggest that you can't incorporate a healthy portion of soy daily. So now I'm going to make my sauce and just let it sit here for a few more minutes. So he made this beautiful looking teriyaki sauce. You know, I don't really like pre-made teriyaki sauces. It tastes really good because you're basically eating sugar.
In this recipe, I will show you how to make a quick, easy, homemade teriyaki sauce. So we're going to start off here with 1/2 cup of brown sugar.
There's sugar, there's fructose. They could put agave syrup. I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's all different varieties of sugar. And I'm trying to wean my family off of the taste of sugar. I mean, you can use all different kinds of sugar. It still has that taste that's going to make you crave for more sugar. So I've decided that if I'm going to use any sugar cooking, it's going to be a whole fruit. So I'm going to use some whole dates. And to cut down the sodium, I'm going to actually use some miso paste because miso has that salty taste, but it doesn't actually raise blood pressure. Not that I have any blood pressure problems, but I believe I don't have any blood pressure problems because I'm always looking for ways to keep my blood pressure low. Now here is half a cup of water. And now I'm going to add about a teaspoon of miso paste. And it's probably not going to be very salty for this amount of water, but that's okay with me. I don't really like a lot of salt. And I'm going to leave the rest to add a little bit of soy sauce because that soy sauce has a different taste, that umami taste. I'm going to spin this teriyaki recipe a little bit and make it kind of a teriyaki Korean barbecue sauce-ish recipe that I actually use all the time. And when I used to make Korean barbecue sauce, I know it's very similar. It's just basically soy sauce, sugar, garlic, ginger. There's some green onions. There's also sesame seeds. But the problem is I ran out of sesame seeds, but I found tahini, which is basically sesame paste. So I'm going to use a spoonful of sesame paste, fresh. I know it tastes so much better, but I forgot to buy some. So I'm going to mix this with the water. It doesn't really matter that it's not mixing very well because I'm going to take a hand blender to this. And I'm going to make this sweet by adding 4 dates. Now, the more dates you add, the sweeter your sauce will be. They're called Cadbury dates. They're just softer and easier for me to do without having to soak my dates to soften it up. You can really use any dry fruit, but dates have a blander flavor. Now I'm going to blend this sauce together. But before I do that, I'm going to grate some ginger and garlic. And I'm probably going to put about a teaspoon of each, which is roughly about 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, depending on how big your garlic is. Now, the more garlic you put, the tastier it will be. Now, I'm actually going to take a blender to the sauce. And before I would just throw in the ginger and throw in the garlic. You know, it never gets to the garlic and ginger so well. It's just like the blender always misses it when you don't have enough of the ingredients. It's kind of like trying to blend 1 ice cube in a whole cup of water, right? You just spin it and the ice cube somehow prevents itself from getting all torn up by the blender blade. So, all right, let me taste this sauce now. Feel like something is missing. Oh, I know what's missing. I forgot my green onions. Adding those green onion leaves will add a different flavor to the sauce. Now, definitely, you know, the sauce is runnier than his because usually teriyaki sauces are full of sugar and then some kind of starch.
2-to-1 ratio of cornstarch. I'm using 2 tablespoons of cornstarch.
Or they put some kind of emulsifier. But it's okay because right now I just want the tofu to marinate in it. So I'm going to cut the tofu cubes like he did, and I'm going to get my chopsticks so that I don't cut through the tofu cubes. All right, now look at this. He only made 2 tofu cubes. I'm going to turn this into 4 pieces, and I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to cut that half into half. Now I'm going to use 3 chopsticks instead of 2 because I'm going to cut 2 tofu cubes at one time, hoping to be more efficient. Now the chopsticks kind of taper off, so I'm going to try to use the thicker portion at the end. Now it's kind of sticky to the knife, but that's okay. I think it's sticky because of the protein. Bean protein has that stickiness, which is great if you're going to use it in the sauce. Since we're not using it in the sauce, I don't really want to put a layer of oil on my knife because then that will just add oil and calories to my food. But also the sauce won't marinate through that because it's just too oily. It will inhibit the absorption of the flavors in the tofu. Okay, so I just did 2 accordions. Not bad. 1 on each side, and I'm going to go do the other accordion. And before I cut the other pieces, I'm going to submerge this in the sauce to let it start marinating before I attempt the rest. Now, in this big bowl, I'm going to add my sauce. Okay, I'm going to slice the other cubes as well. And then I'm going to put this on top of my marinade. To cover it up, I'm going to drizzle more sauce. My sauce looks pretty thin, but that's okay. I'm going to show you a trick to fix it without adding starch or more sugar. And when you bake it, your sauce will dry up. So that's another way that the sauce will thicken up. That's why teriyaki sauces are thicker. They usually put some kind of emulsifier, some kind of starch, but they just add a whole bunch of sugar and, it's like syrup. Again, don't want to do that. I don't like to add extracted ingredients like sugar to my food. And that's why when you buy teriyaki sauce, make sure you turn it around and check. If the second ingredient is sugar, basically you're eating pure sugar. Sauces should not be an exception to the sugar rule. Now, besides sugar, look for emulsifiers like xanthan gum. That can actually disrupt your gut microbiome, adding to more inflammation. And on top of that, some sauces add color, Carmel Color. That makes everything look darker, right? Kind of like Coke. Carmel Color can contain 4-methylimidazole, which has been identified as a possible carcinogen in animals. Now, Carmel Color can also form ammonium compounds, which can have toxic byproducts. Now, all of this can cause sensitivities in people who have asthma. Now, the first time I noticed Carmel Color was when I drank a can of Coke, and I thought, oh, caramel must be just sugar.
Now, with the latest food trend going viral, it's called Fluffy Coke.
You have bigger cubes. Should you beat them a little bit?
Beat them a little bit up, and people are freaking out about this. It's all over the internet right now.
It's not sugar, it's actually a different chemical.
Coke and Pepsi are the same thing! Wake up, people!
Coke and Pepsi are always in their soda wars, and they have very different recipes.
No Coke! Pepsi!
Pepsi has 20 times more Carmel Color than Coke. But under Proposition 65, California Pepsi is actually healthier because it has less Carmel Color than Pepsi sold out of state. But it's even healthier to skip the Pepsi and the Coke altogether.
Some people like tofu because it's an environmentally friendly food. It actually requires less water and it makes less greenhouse gases when people eat tofu as opposed to eating any other animal-based protein. If you've never worked with tofu, then you'll be really surprised that tofu can mimic various textures. You can make it feel like scrambled eggs, or you can grill it and it could taste a little bit like meat. Or you can puree it and it can taste like dessert, like a cream.
Okay, so now I'm going to put this in the oven at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes. Now, really, everything here is edible as is, but when you bake it, you'll concentrate the flavor even more. Here's a trick to thicken any sauce. So number one, you can add flax seeds or chia seeds or basil seeds. You know that mucoid coating on the outside? That's soluble fiber, and that acts as a gel to thicken any sauce. This is why people can make chia seed pudding, right? You just put the chia seeds in and it just sucks up the water, and then the soluble fiber dissolves in the water to make a thickened gel. The second trick you can do is just mash up some beans and stir it in your sauce. That has a ton of resistant starch as well as protein to be a good thickener.
Okay, so my tofu is now done. It's not quite as dark as his because I don't really like black food. That means I burned it. I try not to burn my food. So it's important that I always eat greens. So I'm going to plate it with some arugula and kale. And I always like to top off my food with more fresh vegetables that are a little bit spicier. And that's just chopped up cilantro and green onions.
Okay, so this is my tofu. Let me try it. Let me see what it tastes like. And I actually put it on a bed of grains. I cooked these grains earlier today. It's quinoa, oatmeal, and it has pumpkin seeds, walnuts, almonds, as well as hemp seeds. So it's a grain mixture instead of rice. And then I have some heirloom tomatoes. I have some arugula. I drizzled the sauce on that. And then right here is some kale. So I usually like to eat my green leaves. I don't really put dressing on my vegetables. I usually just use my food as a dressing. This is a protein-rich meal because tofu has a ton of protein. So does my seed nut grain mixture. I'm always looking to add more nutrients in my food. So let me try it with my green leaves because that's usually how I eat my food. All right, kind of messy, but here it goes. It's actually very tasty. It's not too salty. I could have used more garlic. Next time I'm going to put more garlic, more ginger. Fresh sesame would totally make this taste so much better. So I've learned to eat other types of grains instead of rice. Many of you know I'm not a fan of white rice. It tastes great, but it's not nutritious. And if you follow my other videos, my biggest problem with rice is it's so cumbersome to cook because it has arsenic. And if you process it correctly, you can actually get rid of 60% of that arsenic. arsenic, which I highly recommend that you do because arsenic is not one of those things that anybody should be collecting in their body. It is known to mutate DNA. So if you are a huge rice fan, and I'm sure there are billions of you out there, then you should try to wean yourself off of white rice or eating any kind of rice on a daily basis, especially white rice. I know it tastes super good. I've been there. I love it too, but it's basically white sugar. It may be vegan, but it's not that nutritious. But grains in general are higher in carbohydrates than they are in protein. A great way to increase your protein source is to add seeds to your grains. I mean, essentially tofu is a seed. It's a soybean, which is a seed. So I oftentimes cook my grains with seeds. Now, I use quinoa and rolled oats because they cook very quickly. And then I added hemp seeds, walnut seeds, and almonds simply because that's what I could find. So instead of white rice, which is very little fiber, very little protein, very little vitamins, and really no phytonutrients, it's essentially just white starch. I converted white rice into a nutrient-dense grain seed mixture, rich in magnesium, rich in potassium, rich in fiber, rich in phytonutrients, and rich in proteins. And this is great to accompany that soy steak. And this is how you can upgrade any meal, because now this meal has beans, seeds, nuts, grains, leafy greens, and it has a fruit tomato. I just added a few little slices, which really isn't much of a fruit, but it makes the dish look really pretty and it adds moisture to the dry green leaves. Now the arugula is nitrite rich and the dinosaur care is sulforaphane rich. These foods are great for me and my microbiome buddies. Now, if you want to transform your meals to be protein rich, watch the next video.